Thomas, hi, moin, as we say in Hamburg, I guess. Great to have you here. Thomas is the founder and brains and probably hands behind the Service Summit and many other summits. Great to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, great. Thanks for having me. Great to meet you here.
Yeah, and we have the Service Summit in Hamburg. In Hamburg, we say moin at pretty much any time of the day, I think. Those summits happen any time of the year. You had quite a journey to get here. You're an entrepreneur yourself. Maybe you can take us a bit through from your founding of Trailblazers in 2018 and the first summit to today.
Yeah, we started in 2018 with a procurement summit. That was the first show of this kind that we launched. Procurement Summit is the leading German trade show for digitization and innovation in the procurement industry or procurement space. So we bring together the procurement leaders together with the innovators, which are usually the software vendors that create product for digital solutions in the space. And this is something that we've been running for 6 years now, very successfully. And after this success, we started a couple more shows like this. For example, the one that we're at right now, is the Service Summit, where we bring together the Service Summit leaders of large German companies with the innovators, like also software companies that build products and help them increase their efficiency in the customer service department and make their processes more modern and things like that. So that's what our events are about. We have about 1,000 attendees here today, and I think looks like they're all pretty happy.
If we look outside, I mean, there's plenty of conversations going on, plenty of, I guess, real life interaction. And it must be really fulfilling to see when all the pieces come together, especially now multiple years in a row. What brought you here? I mean, what brought you to start your company, and now I guess the multiple summits in 2018?
Yeah, I've spent the first half of my entrepreneurial life with more digital businesses that I've been running, so e-commerce and digital marketing businesses, and I also liked those. And then through some accidents, I would almost say, I stumbled into the events space and tested some conferences and trade shows, and somehow they were successful. And also I learned that there is something that I like about them that is not only measurable in financial success, but also somehow emotionally, because as you just described, it's fun to see not only if you are an e-commerce or if you run an e-commerce company, what you see at the end of the day is an Excel sheet where their numbers are bigger than yesterday's numbers, and you're happy about that. Ideally. And if you run a show like this, you see people walking around happy, having conversations. Over the years, we've seen so many anecdotes of people telling us about who they met here and what great things this event helped bring together, which great people those events also help bring together. So this is something fulfilling on another level than just seeing growing numbers. It's also nice to have this once in a while. I mean, we run about 10 shows a year, so we still spend most of our time at the office looking at Excel files and stuff like that. But we do have regularly these occasions here with the shows where we see our real customers and we see all the interactions and all the buzz that we hope to create.
Yeah, definitely buzz here around here, and we'll talk a bit about what it takes to get it all off the ground in a second. But before we do that, I mean, it's Cards Against Complexity, so I'll jump for a second into the card game. Let me get this up here. And here's a deck that's made for you. The idea, very simple. On the left-hand side, there's a card with a sentence that needs to be completed. On the right-hand side, I've got 3 options.
Okay.
And we'll open this card now, and I'll read it out to you so you get a bit of an idea. We've got the first card, and I'll start the sentence, and we'll complete it together. So the 2025 edition of Service Summit next year, will be there, has a surprise keynote speaker. It's the Grinch. It's almost Christmas, with a keynote titled From Stealing Christmas to Winning Back Customers. Cleopatra sharing her secrets on loyalty programs that build empires. or Arnold Schwarzenegger teaching how to terminate bad CX practices? Which one is your keynote speaker?
I mean, there's a big difference in how realistic they are.
I mean, the Grinch. I mean, I would always love to see him on stage.
Cleopatra is a little more difficult. She's dead. I think I'm going for Arnold Schwarzenegger because I think he would really bring us some interesting audience, and I think people would love to see him on stage and terminate bad CX practices.
Yeah, so I can see already the music leading up to him taking the stage. I can see some imagery around this, and terminating bad CX is what we're here for.
Some big guns on stage, always great.
Some big guns and the person himself. So we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger ideally next year here. Maybe we should start and send him an application video like this, and see if he can make his way from California all the way to Hamburg. Outside of the key people speaking on stage, there's so many people, I think, at this event. If we just said 1,000 people roundabout for this event, it's participants, it's vendors, it's all kinds of people behind the scenes. How does this get together? Like you have to start somewhere. Like how long is that process, and how does it work as an overall project? I think there's so much complexity, and there would be great to have a bit of an insight of what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's complex and difficult if you've never done it. So we've done it quite a number of times with our different shows and annually. So we're getting used to it, but still. You are right. There is quite some complexity involved. It's always 1 year cycle. So our events always take place annually. So right after this show, beginning next week, we start preparing everything for the next show. There is about a 50-person team involved in this for the 10 shows. So on average, I would say that little less than 5 people work on this show. Not that much, but they do marketing, of course, to acquire more attendees every year because we want to grow. There's a sales team that acquires exhibitors, obviously. Then there is a conference team, as we call it, that acquires speakers. So they're going to talk to Arnie next week, hopefully.
Yeah, let's get him on board. Yeah, we have the application video ready.
And of course, also an operations team that takes care that we're, for example, not freezing in this beautiful historic venue here that people probably in this podcast can't see, but it's a very beautiful historic warehouse in the harbor of Hamburg. It's beautiful, but it's not meant to be heated, actually. So in winter, which we are right, almost winter, it's pretty cold now. So there needs to be quite some heating in here. Otherwise, people would freeze to death.
Yeah, and there's logistics behind that, right? And there's some kind of almost magic coming out of this, right? Like, so on this day, like when we're now here, the bus is somehow there. What does it take to bring that kind of magic in here? And what do you see, like, from your experience now? And I think people in customer service can relate to this. What does it do you need to do to make those 2 days very magical with your team and with everyone else involved?
Yeah, on the one hand, it's also related to customer service. We always try to produce very high quality shows. So we want to make sure everyone's happy, even with the smallest details. So we want to make sure what always happens is that some exhibitor comes up to our team and says, hey, we have this screen here and we need to connect it to our computer, but we forgot the HDMI cable. That happens every time. And that's why we have a couple of those cables. Everything else, like duct tape and stuff like that, people are missing, and we help them with stuff like that. So we try to ensure that everyone's happy, although they forgot something at home, and we can hopefully help them get everything fixed in time before the attendees arrive. So this is one thing. The other thing is that we do usually have competitors more or less with our shows. So some are leading, others have even larger competitors still. This, for example, is a relatively young and a show that's not yet market leading, probably at least in Europe. And there we try to create, you call it magic, which is beautiful. We usually call it buzz. We try to be a little more modern, maybe fancy, if you want to call it that. Compared to the other classic trade shows. So you see much less suits and ties around here. You see maybe a little more music, a little more lights and stuff like that. So classical trade shows in Germany can look very boring, can feel very boring. And we want to try to make people feel like when they come in here, they shouldn't only feel like they're attending a very relevant conference and trade show for their industry and for their job, but they also should feel a little like going to a party, like a little being, it's not a party, but it's, we want it to be a mixture of a relevant business event and something that's still fun.
Yeah, and I mean that shines through. If I just listen now, we hear some music, we hear conversations, we hear the buzz, and we also see that happening. I mean, it's in the colors, it's in the way I think people show up. That's I think something I recognized. Your team is there; they're present.
Yeah.
They're on top of it and before, during the show, after the show. I think this is something else to relate to service. In the end, the service is what your team does, right? What do you look for in team members? What do you look for in the people, probably lots of partners that you collaborate with?
Our team is pretty young, so I'm one of the oldest, and they've all mostly grown into it, into this kind of work on this company. So we hardly have anyone that has a lot of experience outside that they brought into our business, because I would think if we have someone that worked for 20 years for one of the very old-fashioned trade show organizing companies, they would probably bring a different culture that wouldn't fit with ours. That's why we want to have rather inexperienced people that can learn the way how we do it at Trailblazer. And then it's company culture. So every new employee comes in and learns from the rest of the team and learns how we're doing it. And what's always been very important for me is that we want everyone to go home happy, no matter what happens. If he drops his coffee, we want to help him clean his clothes, or if he lost his HDMI cable, we want to help him. So we want everyone to go home happy and hopefully do everything that we can to make sure they don't go home sad.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the best sales pitch, I would say, for anyone listening who hasn't been to Service Summit. Service Summit last year was at a already sizable venue, but it feels it was a bit smaller than this one. This is already an upgrade in terms of the number of people. There's probably new people that are coming next year. For anyone who's listening who hasn't been to Service Summit yet, what can they expect when they come here? And is there a 2025 edition? Yes, there is. Is Arnie there? We will see. But what's in it for somebody joining the show next year, and why should they come?
Yeah, it's a trade show and conference. So we have in the trade show area, we always want to have the most relevant vendors that produce digital solutions, that produce everything that you need as a customer service leader to bring your customer service department to the next level. So that's always going to be in the trade show area. Then we have the attendees. So we want to have a very high level audience of leading figures from the customer service departments of medium-sized and large German companies. This is what you can meet here. And it's also very important to the attendees, as we know that they want to network with others that are doing similar jobs in other relevant companies. So that's a very valuable networking opportunity. It's also called Summit. So we really have decision makers, very high level, not really that we fill up when we don't sell enough tickets. We don't fill up with students that aren't really relevant. So we want to have a very high level audience. And the last part, but certainly not least, maybe not even Arnie, but on the stages, we have the most relevant speakers that are speaking about their experiences, how they digitize customer service departments, what their projects are, what they're working on. So we have these customer service leaders, hopefully some of the best ones that we have in the German market on the stages this year and next year again as well.
Perfect. So thanks so much for giving us a bit of an insight of what it takes to build, I guess, a service summit and a group of summits from scratch. Building a team behind it, which I think a lot of service people can relate to. Culture is important, the right people, and almost embedding them in your team and letting them grow in your team. And then Service Summit is coming up right now for us. We'll go back into the bus, but also for everyone else listening, there's a link in the comments to Service Summit for next year. I won't promise Arnie yet, but I hear you're working on it. And yeah, thank you so much for playing a round of Cards Against Complexity with me and sharing with us your journey as an entrepreneur and what's coming up with Service Summit in the next few years.
Thanks for having me. It was great to talk to you. Enjoy the show.
Thank you very much.